remarkable demonstration by a crowd of several hundred outside the courthouse in Pretoria, the courthouse in which Mr. Justice de Wet delivered verdict and sentence in the sabotage trial, which had lasted 86 days. Nelson Mandela, whose wife you just saw, leader and founder of the sabotage movement Spear of the Nation and leading member of African National Congress, was accused with the others of plotting sabotage to overthrow the South African government by force and revolution. The verdict of guilty on 8 of the 9 accused was not altogether surprising, because Nelson Mandela himself and others had admitted guilt on certain charges. Mandela had declared in court, "I planned sabotage because all lawful methods of opposition were closed. I have cherished the ideal of democratic society with equal opportunity for all. That is an ideal," he said, "for which I am prepared to die." The next day, armed police massed in even greater force as Mr. Justice de Wet was passing sentence, his words recorded for the government radio.
The crime of which the accused had been convicted, that is the main crime, the crime of conspiracy, is in essence one of high treason. The state has decided not to charge the crime in this form. Bearing this in mind and giving the matter very serious consideration, I have decided not to impose the supreme penalty, which in a case like this would usually be the proper penalty for the crime.
Well, what has been the result of this trial? The South African government has crushed a plot to overthrow the South African government by sabotage and revolution with communist assistance. But the supreme question still faces the South African people. If the black inhabitants of South Africa are not allowed a share in their government, will not leaders arise who are bound to see no alternative but violence and alliance with communists?
Although there are still outbursts of bitter feeling between the Afrikaans and English-speaking whites, it appears that as foreign condemnation intensifies, the ranks of white South Africa are drawing closer together. And this means even stronger support for Dr. Verwoerd. State President Swart put it this way.
Since the coming of our republic, there has arisen a new and irresistible desire to attain solidarity as a nation with harmony and cohesion among its component parts. One thing is certain and undeniable. If we wish to survive and to develop and to prosper in this land of ours, especially in view of what is being engineered against us in the world beyond our borders, we shall have to talk less and do much more to achieve that solidarity as against dangers enveloping us from outside.
A consistent parliamentary voice, sometimes the only one, against the government's...
and undeniable. If we wish to survive and to develop and to prosper in this land of ours, especially in view of what is being engineered against us in the world beyond our borders, we shall have to talk less and do much more to achieve that solidarity as against dangers enveloping us from outside.
A consistent parliamentary voice, sometimes the only one, against the government's security and race laws, is Mrs. Helen Suzman, the Progressive Party's 1 MP.
Our party is based on the rejection of racial discrimination. We believe South Africa is a multiracial country, and we're prepared to face all the consequences of that.
Do you believe in one man, one vote, like the South African Liberal Party does?
No, we do not believe in one man, one vote. We believe in a qualified franchise for all races, based on an arbitrary test, which is educational plus an or an income qualification.
Do you think that outside pressures on South Africa, such as the threat of economic sanctions by the United Nations, is helpful to the situation here, or do you merely think that it serves to entrench white support for Dr. Verwoerd?
Yes, I do not believe it to be helpful. I think it does entrench white support behind Dr. Verwoerd. I am not in favor of economic sanctions against this country. I believe that people who advocate that have not carried their thoughts further than the immediate solution that they suggest. What worries me is how one then continues to have a stable government in South Africa, supposing, which I doubt incidentally very much, that economic sanctions were successfully imposed against South Africa.
What do you think the outside world can do then, if anything?
Well, I think the outside world must continue with informed criticism against this country. I do not think it's a good idea to give the government the impression that the outside world in any way condones its policy. But I think most important of all, the outside world should give the impression to South Africa, to moderate South African opinion, white as well as non-white, that it would be prepared to accept reasonable concessions from this country and not simply demand the handing over of South Africa to black domination.
Even if these poor tribal homelands do, under apartheid, eventually become fully independent states, the real question is how can they be anything but irrelevant in a country where more than half the Africans live and work outside these homelands, not to mention the problem of the colored and Asian minorities. It is impossible to see how these black homelands can ever solve the real problem of South African race relations. For apartheid means setting aside a mere 13% of the land for 70% of the population. And each year, more and more Africans pour into Johannesburg and the other big cities to work. As one Afrikaner critic puts it, despite 15 years of apartheid legislation, white South Africa is still becoming blacker and blacker.